Pleasant good afternoon to all. My name is Kelvin Dragon, and I will be your adjunct speaker and chair for this evening. Welcome everyone to World Pharmacist Day Debate 2025. It's brought to you by the Grenada Association of Pharmacists. Before we go any further, I would just like for us to stand as we welcome the Lord's presence, and the prayer will be done by one of the speakers from the opposition team, Mrs. Keisha Dragon.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks and praise. We thank you for your many blessings, for your goodness and your mercy. We thank you for bringing us here this evening. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to bless this evening's proceedings. We ask you to be with each and every one of the participants this evening. We pray, Lord Jesus, that it will be a learning experience for all. Bless those who are here, who are on their way, and may it be a successful event. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
And I ask you to remain standing as we recognize nation. Stand for the national anthem. Thank you. You may please have your seats. So again, I will be your adjunct speaker for this evening and host. My name is Kelvin Dragon, the president of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists. And it is indeed a pleasure for me to welcome with us Honorable Lennox Andrews, the acting prime minister, also the Minister for Economic Development, Planning, Tourism, ICT, Creative Economy, Agriculture and Lands, Fisheries and Cooperatives. Mrs. Camille Isaac, Chief Pharmacist, Ministry of Health. Ms. Nandi Noel, Chief Executive Officer, the Grenada Cannabis Commissions for Legalization and Regulation. Mr. Anselm Clouden, Barrister at Law. Executive members of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists. Our esteemed judges, our most accurate timekeeper, debaters from both the opposition and proposition, other specially invited guests, our in-person and our online viewers who are following us on Mikey Live. A pleasant good evening to all. Tonight, this evening rather, we gather to explore a topic that is both timely, thought-provoking. Should marijuana be legalized for medicinal use in Grenada? Across the globe, many nations have already begun re-examining the role of cannabis in modern medicine. Some see it as a natural remedy, while others see it as an increased concern or risk associated with misuse and long-term impact on our society. This debate is not just about a plant. It is about health, law, economics, and the value we hold as a nation. And so to speak to us, we would invite Honorable Lennox Andrew, Acting PM and Minister of Agriculture, to the podium to give us a few words.
A very pleasant good afternoon to all. Moderator, should I refer to you all? Opposition and opposition. Judges, audience. First of all, let me recognize the Grenada Pharmacist Association for taking this wonderful and meaningful initiative to have this debate here this afternoon. And I thank you for that very much, because it can be seen as part of our efforts to spread the issue of marijuana and its use and its value to our nation. In the coming weeks or months, the government of Grenada is going to present a bill to the Parliament for the decriminalization of marijuana. And therefore, I see this activity as part of the efforts to educate and to inform our population about the value and the use of marijuana in a modern day society. So I took the time really and truly to be here because for me it is part of my own preparation for my own debate when I would face the Parliament in a couple of months' time. And therefore, I certainly would listen attentively as part of my own preparation for that debate coming up. And here again lies the importance of having this activity. I want to wish both the opposition and the proposition the very best in their deliberations. I'm not here to take sides, but certainly I would listen attentively to the pros and the cons, to the issues brought forward. And I get a sense that from the smiles on their faces, we are going to have a very meaningful, a very competitive, a very thought-provoking discourse here this afternoon. And I do hope that our population, albeit not much present here now, but I reckon those who are listening online would also listen and would also be enlightened on the value and the importance of marijuana in this, our contemporary world. So thank you all again for inviting me. And of course, we do have our team here from the Cannabis Committee. Ms. Nandinwell is here with us. So we are listening attentively, and we look forward to a very good debate, informative, educational, that could bring greater understanding and clarity to the people of Grenada on the value and importance of this wonderful plant we call marijuana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for those encouraging words. Events like these, they cost a dime a dozen. And without our sponsors, we would not be able to put on an event like that. So before we go further, I would like to recognize a few of our sponsors. Our platinum sponsor and title sponsor, Bryden's Pharmacy Division. Our gold sponsor, Huggins Pharmaceutical Division. Our silver sponsor, Emporio Grenada Limited. Without these companies, this debate this evening, would not have been possible. We also like to extend a thank you to the Grenada Boys Secondary School, principal, teachers, faculty, for affording us the use of this venue, the auditorium. Be it resolved that marijuana should have a place in modern medicine and should be legalized for medicinal use in Grenada. This is what we'll be discussing this evening. However, we have a few rules that we must follow before we go into deep debate. Rule number 1, no interruptions on the floor while the speakers are presenting. Rule number 2, time limits, and it goes as follows. There are 3 speakers on each side, proposing and opposing sides. The 2 speakers, or I should say speaker 1 on both the proposing and the opposing side, would have 5 minutes to present. Speakers 2 on both the proposition and opposition side would have 4 minutes to present. And speaker 3 on both the proposition and opposition side would have 4 minutes to present. Second segment, we would have an open floor Q&A, and that would happen in the form of a crossfire, where both the proposition and opposition would have the opportunity to ask questions to each other. They would be drilling and boring holes in the argument, and also trying to propose their argument as the stronger. And I think that would be my favorite part of it, although I shouldn't be taking sides. I don't think I am, but. And the last segment would be some closing remarks where the opposition and proposition would further re-emphasize their positions. And that would be 2 minutes each. Speech content. Each speaker must build upon their team's position without repeating themselves. So speaker 2 should not be repeating what speaker 1 is saying. All medical, legal, and scientific claims should be accurate and supported by credible sources, so they should be citing their sources. New arguments must not be introduced by speaker 3, the closing speaker, but only rebuttals and summaries are allowed. In the crossfire, or the open floor, that discussion would be moderated with 30 seconds given per turn, and the speakers may ask or respond to questions from the opposition or the opposing teams. Conduct and decorum, no personal attacks or insults. Myself, the humble servant, the speaker, must remain respectful and neutral at all times, and also adhere or make sure that they adhere to the allotted times, which would be supported by the timekeeper. Microphones should be kept muted at all times and should only be open when speaking. Without further ado, I will introduce our judges for this evening. He's a registered pharmacist, or has been registered since 1985. He has served as the procurement officer at ECDS and PPS of the OECS from 1994 to 1997. He has been a pharmacy inspector for many years, an adjunct tutor at the pharmacy program at the T.A. Marisho Community College, particularly in forensic pharmacy. He has served in almost every district as a pharmacist, including hospital as a senior pharmacist, an assistant hospital administrator, health services administrator at the Princess Alice Hospital and Mount Gay Psychiatric Hospital, past president of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists, council member of the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists, council member at the CPA, and past chairman and member of the Grenada Pharmacy Council. Ladies and gentlemen, this person is no other than Mr. Kester Anthony Cyrus. A second judge. He brings together 13 years of distinguished experience in education and academic administration at the tertiary level. He's a lawyer and a lecturer at the T.A. Marisho Community College, and his career is marked by deep commitment to academic excellence, strategic institutional development, and fostering environments where both students and faculty can thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Albert Mitchell. And last, but certainly not least, she's a medical doctor and a proud graduate of the St. George's University class of 2022. She has always had a love for reading and critical thinking, which naturally drew her to debate during her secondary school years. Known then for her sharp rebuttals and quick thinking on her feet, she now brings those same skills to her work as a physician. Beyond medicine, she enjoys exploring new perspectives and has a genuine appreciation for clear, well-structured arguments. She looks forward to hearing the thoughtful ideas and spirited discussions that this competition will bring. Ladies and gentlemen, for a third time, let us welcome our third judge, Dr. Dwanlin George. And so while we have judges, this debate would not be possible without the debaters. And so I will introduce the team members. On my right, the proposition on affirmative team. To my far right, she currently resides at Woodland St. George's. She is currently employed at Gittins Healthcare Pharmacy at Wall Street. Her hobbies are trying new food, so she's a foodie, watching movies, reading, and learning new things. Her favorite quote is, "Change is the only constant," by Heraclitus. Ladies and gentlemen, Jada Crawford. He's from the parish with no town as yet, and maybe the current PM might change that, I'm not sure. Current, to be exact. Works at Hills and Valley Pharmacy in St. George, and his favorite quote is, "A dream is a goal waiting to be achieved." Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Amir Bagwan. And to my immediate right, she hails from the parish of St. Andrew, big parish, Paraclete to be exact. She's also employed at Gittins Healthcare Pharmacy at Wall Street. Her hobbies are writing, event planning, health advocacy, travel planning, and enjoying nature. Her favorite quote, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." Muhammad Ali. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Marissa Batiste. And for the opposition, to my far left, he hails from Crown City, or Crown Parish, Hermitage to be exact. He's a recent graduate of the T.A. Marisho Community College Pharmacy program. His hobbies are video games, or playing video games, socializing with friends, and looking at investigative shows. His favorite quote, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." Martin Luther King Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, DeAndre Alexander Frame. She hails from Grand Bacolet, St. Andrew, and currently works at the St. Augustine's Medical Services. Her hobbies are reading medical journals, and she's specific there, not just reading, but medical journals, engaging in community health initiatives, traveling, gardening, and crocheting. Her favorite quote, "A life of science, adventure, and love, the perfect formula." Ladies and gentlemen, Latonya Kado. Currently residing at St. Paul's, St. George, she's in her second year at TAMCC Pharmacy program. Her hobbies are singing, dancing, and experiencing fun adventures. Her favorite quote, "Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work," by Aristotle. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Keisha Dragon. And these will be our debaters from both proposition and opposition this evening. And so I reintroduce the topic to you as we head straight to debate after the topic is read. Be it resolved that marijuana should have a place in modern medicine and should be legalized for medicinal use in Grenada. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker from the proposition side, Ms. Jada Crawford.
Honorable Lennox Andrew, Minister of Economic Development, Planning, Tourism, ICT, Creative Economy, Agriculture and Lands, Fisheries and Cooperatives, Mrs. Camille Isaac, Chief Pharmacist, Ministry of Health, and our most esteemed speaker, Ms. Nandi Noel, Chief Executive Officer, Grenada Cannabis Commission for Legalization and Regularization, Mr. Anselm Clouden, Barrister at Law, advocate for the legalization of marijuana. Thank you. Mr. Kelvin Dragon, President of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists, executive members, Grenada Association of Pharmacists, our esteemed judges, our most accurate timekeeper, our worthy opponents, our specially invited guests, our in-person and online viewers, a pleasant evening. Imagine a Grenadian cancer patient who endures relentless nausea after every round of chemotherapy, or a child with severe epilepsy who continues to suffer seizures despite every available treatment. These are not hypothetical scenarios. These are real struggles faced by real people. As William Osler once said, the good physician treats the disease. The great physician treats the patient who has the disease. This reminds us that medicine is ultimately about improving patient outcomes and ensuring that people have access to treatments that can genuinely help them. Should they be denied a treatment that has been proven to bring relief simply because of outdated stigma? Today, we say no. We propose the motion, be it resolved that marijuana should have a place in modern medicine and should be legalized for medicinal use in Grenada. Before we proceed, let us define our key terms. Marijuana, also known as cannabis, is a plant that contains active compounds called cannabinoids. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, marijuana, also known as cannabis, refers to the dried leaves, flowers, stems, and seeds of the cannabis plant. The plant has many different chemical compounds, including tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, which has intoxicating mild-altering effects. The most studied of these are tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, and cannabidiol, or CBD. According to Health Direct Australia, medicinal cannabis, or marijuana, is a cannabis product that is prescribed by a registered healthcare practitioner to relieve the symptoms of some medical conditions. Modern medicine refers to the application of scientific knowledge and clinical expertise to diagnose, treat, and prevent diseases using evidence-based practices, pharmaceuticals, and medical technologies as defined by Science Direct. Our team's case rests on three key pillars. First, scientific evidence showing marijuana's medical benefits. Second, international and regional precedents proving safe legalization is possible. And third, Grenada's opportunity to improve patient care and strengthen public health. The scientific case is strong. In 2017, the U.S. National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine released a landmark report concluding there is conclusive or substantial evidence that cannabis is effective in treating chronic pain, in reducing nausea and vomiting caused by chemotherapy, and in improving muscle spasticity in multiple sclerosis patients. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has also recognized cannabis' medical value by improving or approving medicines such as Epidiolex, a cannabidiol drug for severe childhood epilepsy, dronabinol, marinol, sesamet, and Syndros, which are synthetic forms of THC used to combat chemotherapy-induced nausea and HIV-related weight loss. These are not anecdotes or myths. These are evidence-based medical interventions. Globally, the World Health Organization has acknowledged a growing body of evidence supporting medicinal cannabis. In its 2019 critical review, the World Health Organization recommended rescheduling cannabis to reflect its therapeutic value. More than 40 countries, including Canada, Germany, the United Kingdom, and importantly, our Caribbean neighbors, Jamaica and St. Vincent, have legalized marijuana for medical purposes. Their cannabis licensing authority provides a regional example of how small island states can regulate this medicine safely and effectively. Grenada now has an opportunity to act. Legalizing marijuana for medical use could give our patients access to alternative treatments when conventional therapies fail. It could allow for quality control and regulation, replacing unsafe black market products with safe, standardized medicine. Beyond health, there are also economic benefits. A regulated system could create opportunities in medical research, cultivation, and exports, strengthening Grenada's economy while improving public health. Ladies and gentlemen, marijuana under medical supervision is not a dangerous street drug. It is a legitimate medicine backed by science and recognized around the world. For the sake of our patients and the progress of our nation, we must affirm this motion. I thank you.
And so we continue on with the proposition being made. And let's hear what the opposition has to say to that proposition as we invite the first speaker from the opposition, Mrs. Keisha Dragon.
Honorable Lennox Andrews, Minister for Economic Development, Planning, Tourism, ICT, Creative Economy, Agriculture and Lands, Fisheries and Cooperatives. Ms. Nandi Noel, Chief Executive Officer of the Grenada Cannabis Commission for Legalization and Regulation. Mr. Anselm Clouden, Barrister at Law, Advocate for the Legalization of Marijuana. Mr. Kelvin Dragon, President of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists. Executive members of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists, our esteemed judges, our most accurate timekeeper, our worthy opponents, other specially invited guests, our in-person and online viewers, good afternoon all. We, the opposition, firmly reject the resolution that marijuana should be legalized for medicinal use in Grenada. While the idea may sound appealing on the surface, the evidence shows that this proposal is unsafe, impractical, and harmful to our country. Ladies and gentlemen, before this debate goes any further, let us confront the brutal truth. Grenada is not ready to legalize marijuana for medicinal use, and pretending otherwise is reckless, dangerous, and just irresponsible. If marijuana truly belonged in modern medicine, it would already be sitting on the pharmacy shelves alongside aspirin, insulin, among others. But it is not. Mr. Speaker, why is that so? Because even after decades of research, the science remains divided. The risk remains undeniable, and the consequences remain uncontrollable. Now, the proposing team will try to paint marijuana as a miracle cure, but make no mistake, this is not medicine we are debating. According to medical news today, and I quote, modern medicine is when healthcare professionals such as doctors, nurses, and therapists use scientific research to diagnose and treat symptoms and conditions. In contrast, the National Institute on Drug Abuse defines medicinal marijuana by using whole, unprocessed marijuana plant or in its basic extracts to treat symptoms or illness and other conditions. However, Mr. Speaker, all I hear is that it is a mind-altering drug with addictive potential, uncertain dosages, unpredictable side effects, and proven pathways to abuse. To cloak it as medicine is not only misleading, it is a deliberate attempt to bypass the very safeguards that protect our people from harm. So the question is not, why not marijuana? The real question is, why should Grenada risk its stability, its health system, and its future on an experiment that others have already shown to be fraught with danger? Honorable judges, would you willingly board a plane if the pilot omittedly admits that he is not able to fly? Of course not. Over 70% of our pharmacists admit they lack the knowledge to safely handle medicinal marijuana, a fact documented in our very own Latonya Cadu's 2020-22 study. To legalize a drug under these conditions is like boarding a plane without barely knowing how to fly. Reckless, dangerous, and a gamble with the health of every Grenadian. This is not progress. It is a disaster just waiting to happen. Mr. Speaker, let me be crystal clear. No amount of revenue or promise can justify risking the health, the safety, and future of our people on a proposal that is reckless, unnecessary, and potentially devastating. Firstly, our healthcare system is just not ready. It already struggles under its load. Adding this will push it further to its breaking point. Secondly, the risk far outweighs the supposed benefits. We cannot gamble with health and safety of our people for uncertain gains. Thirdly, the nation is divided. Pushing forward would deepen mistrust and fracture our society even further. And finally, we already have safe, proven alternatives. Mr. Speaker, why abandon what works for what might fail? Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, we have laid the evidence before you, and the truth is undeniable. Grenada is not prepared, medically, legally, or even socially, to embrace marijuana for medicinal use. We are being asked to stake the well-being of our nation on uncertain science, divided public opinion, and a drug whose dangers are well documented and unavoidable. We, the opposition, stand firm. This proposal is premature, unsafe, and unwise. For the sake of our nation's health, for the safety of our youth, Mr. Speaker, and the security of our future, we urge you to reject this resolution in its entirety. The choice is clear. Grenada's health, safety, and future demand a resounding no. We say no, not now, not ever. I thank you.
My word, Minister, you may have quite a hard time because the proposition and the opposition, they are bringing quite strong points. And so it's either you're prepared or you're not. And so they have brought their constructive arguments, proposing and rejecting the reasons why marijuana should or should not be introduced to Grenada for medicinal use. And so the next two speakers we would hear from both the proposition and the opposition would be extending on these arguments. And so I ask for your continued attention as the second speaker who would bring the affirmative extension to the resolution. Let us welcome Mr. Amir Bagwan.
Standing on the protocol already established, good evening. My colleague has laid the foundation of our case by showing the medical value of cannabis and the international legalization. I will now build on these points, add new supporting evidence, and address some of the objections that the opposition may raise. One of the strongest arguments for medicinal cannabis is that it offers a safer alternative to opioids for managing chronic pain. The opioid crisis worldwide has devastated communities due to high risk of dependence and overdose. The National Institute on Drug Abuse reports that cannabis has a much lower potential for addiction and overdose compared to opioids. In fact, the Journal of Pain in 2016 stated that cannabis use was associated with a 64% lower opioid use in patients with chronic pain. In other words, medical marijuana can help patients manage chronic pain while reducing their reliance on stronger Schedule II medication. Honorable judges, while concerns about safety of medicinal marijuana are valid, it is important to note that according to Health Canada, unlike substances such as alcohol or opioids, where overdose may be fatal, a cannabis overdose is not fatal. Furthermore, this is also about human rights and patients' autonomy. In 2019,
The World Health Organization acknowledged the medical value of cannabis and recommended reclassification internationally. Patients should not be criminalized for seeking relief when conventional treatments fail. To deny them of this option is to rob them of their right to health and dignity, unconscionable. More importantly, legalization does not mean uncontrolled access. Regulation ensures that cannabis is available only through licensed physicians in standardized doses and with quality control. The United Kingdom did this in 2018, allowing healthcare professionals to prescribe cannabis-based medicines like Norbolone and Sativex. As pharmacists, we are uniquely positioned to ensure safe and effective use through proper guidance, monitoring, and patient education. The opposition may argue that cannabis increases such risks as psychosis or schizophrenia. But as Professor Wayne Hall noted in the Lancet Psychiatry in 2019, these risks are tied to heavy recreational use among young people, not supervised medical treatment in adults. Also, they may claim that Grenada lacks resources to regulate cannabis. But if we can regulate opioids like morphine, we can certainly regulate medicinal marijuana. When compared to nicotine, with about 30% chance of addiction, according to Dr. Timothy Fong, cannabis is far less addictive, with only a 9% chance of dependence. Beyond health, the economic benefits are compelling. Legalization can create jobs in farming, processing, distribution, and retail, while positioning Grenada as a regional supplier. Evidence from other countries show that these benefits are not theoretical. For example, in 2024, Canada's legal cannabis sector contributed to 16 billion Canadian dollars to national gross domestic product, while supporting more than 227,000 jobs, boosting industries from packaging to transportation. A regulated cannabis industry here could provide tax revenue for healthcare, education, and infrastructure, fueling national development. To encapsulate, medicinal marijuana is safer than many alternatives, protects patient rights, and offers both health and economic benefits. This is not about endorsing misuse. It's about offering compassionate, evidence-based care while unlocking new opportunities for our country. Honorable judges, I thank you.
And those were quite some insightful thoughts there by Mr. Bagwan. Let us ensure some balance as we invite Ms. Latonia Cador to give an extension to a previous colleague's position. Ms. Latonia Cador.
Standing on the already established protocol, honorable judges, esteemed audience, good evening. I rise as the second speaker for the opposition to further strengthen our case against this notion. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise to expose the hard truth that my opponents have pushed into the shadows with their bombastic rhetorics and sugar-coated arguments. Let us not be distracted by charades. Let us focus on the facts. The resolution before us is not just misguided, it is absolutely outrageous. How amusing is it to hear the so-called benefits my opponents parade before you? Creative, perhaps. Convincing, not in the slightest. Their arguments are riddled with flaws, poorly assessed, and dangerously one-sided. As expected, they have buried the truth, the harsh realities of marijuana, used beneath layers of rhetorics, hoping you wouldn't notice. But I will not allow that. I will pull back the veil on the truths that they dare not confront. Marijuana legalization would place a huge burden on healthcare providers. Doctors and pharmacists would face unclear dosing, unpredictable effects, and unknown drug interactions, all without proper training, forcing critical decisions in the dark. Medicine relies on precision and evidence, yet legalization would replace both with confusion and danger. Our pharmacists are unprepared. A study previously referenced by my colleague found that 71.1% of our pharmacists are only slightly knowledgeable about medical marijuana, while the others have no knowledge at all. So I ask, Mr. Speaker, if those responsible for dispensing medicines are unready, how can we legalize safely? This lack of readiness threatens public health, and it's only the beginning. Supporters boast of medical marijuana's medical potential, but the reality is stark. 56% of pharmacists agree that the risks outweigh the benefits. These include addiction, impaired memory, reduced productivity, and a broad spectrum of side effects. In accordance to the CAMEL 2025 Medscape research, cannabis use also carries huge, serious long-term metabolic risk, with a real-world data showing nearly 4-fold increase in the risk of developing diabetes over 5 years. In countries that legalize it, youth use soars, young minds are damaged, addiction climbs, ERs overflow, and workplaces decline. Crime does not vanish. The black market adapt, roads are less safe, marijuana becomes the gateway to harder drugs. Grenada simply cannot afford this disaster. Nations with far more resources are collapsing under these burdens. So, honorable judges, I ask you this: why would we inherit the same public health crisis? The data speaks for itself. 33.3% of healthcare professionals oppose legalization. These are the very people expected to implement and manage legalization. So if the experts cannot agree, how can we trust that the policies will be safe, effective, or even enforceable? Public opinion is equally divided. Legalizing a substance with serious medical risks without consensus among professionals and citizens would be reckless. In matters of health and safety, divided support is not a luxury we can afford. It's a gamble Grenada seriously cannot take. Honorable judges, we already have safer, proven, and regulated alternatives for pain, nausea, and seizures. These are tested, monitored, and safe. So why replace them with marijuana, a drug that is addictive, mind-altering, and full of dangerous side effects? Why gamble with public health when effective, safe treatments already exist? So let us be absolutely clear. This debate is not about denying progress. It is about demanding responsible progress, progress that is safe and progress that is evidence-based. Honorable judges, this debate is not about whether marijuana has some medical potential. It's about whether Grenada should legalize it. Legalizing it would create confusion, widen loopholes for abuse, and increase social stigma. The conclusion against the case is undeniable. The facts are clear. We're not ready, our providers are not adequately trained, the risks outweigh the benefits, public support remains divided, and safer alternatives already exist. For this reason, I urge you to reject this resolution. Thank you.
I may have to speak to the principal of the Grenada Boys Secondary School to install AC in this building because I think it's getting quite hot in here. And so we have heard from both sides extending their resolutions on the point. What I would like to say, though, to our audience is that at some point, well, not at some point, after they would have presented their closing arguments, you would have the opportunity to ask questions yourself. So don't feel left out of this debate. When they would have given their closing arguments, I would open the floor and you would be able to direct questions to them. So you can start thinking about some of the questions you want to ask. And so we move on to the rebuttals. And so both sides would have presented their reasons for and against. And so we are going to listen to the proposing and opposing sides rebut their opponent's position. And inviting from the proposition side to bring her rebuttal, Ms. Marissa Batiste.
Standing on the protocol already established, good evening. The opposition would have you believe that medical marijuana is a threat, a substance so unsafe that it should be avoided at all costs, as though it would bring Grenada to the brink of chaos. But that is nothing more than fear-mongering. Their arguments exaggerate the risks, while conveniently ignoring the overwhelming body of international evidence that proves medical cannabis is safe, effective, and manageable under regulation. They claim that marijuana is addictive and unsafe. But according to the World Health Organization report in 2019, medical cannabis has a far lower dependence potential than alcohol, tobacco, opioids, all of which are already legal and regulated in Grenada. With proper systems in place, the risks are minimal, not catastrophic. They warn that They say that Grenada lacks the resources to regulate. Yet Grenada already regulates highly controlled substances like morphine with precision. And let us be clear, Jamaica, St. Vincent, and other Caribbean countries have already successfully established cannabis licensing authorities. If they can do it, there is no reason to pretend that Grenada cannot. It was said by the opposition that data is lacking. Yes, data is lacking, because if it is not legalized, there's no way that longitudinal cohort studies can be done. There's no way that randomized controlled trials can take place. This is how we would get the evidence. So let us return to the 3 pillars of our case. First, the science is clear. Cannabis relieves pain, reduces seizures, and eases the suffering of patients with cancers, multiple sclerosis, and other conditions. Second, the global evidence is undeniable. More than 40 nations, including Canada, Germany, and Jamaica, have legalized and regulated medicinal cannabis effectively. Third, Grenada now has the opportunity not only to bring relief to the patients, but also to build a framework that strengthens public health and drives economic growth. Have you had patients maximizing on carbamazepine, maximizing on epilim, increased hospitalizations? Now this is the public health crisis. This is the increased health burden on the system. In conclusion, the opposition has painted cannabis as a villain, a danger to society, a force to be avoided at all costs. But the truth is opposite. Under medical supervision, cannabis is not a threat. It is a tool of healing. It is backed by science, supported by international precedents, and urgently needed in Grenada. For the sake of compassion, progress, and health equity, we strongly urge you to affirm the motion. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite to rebut the rebuttal from the opposition, Mr. DeAndre Alexander Frame.
With protocol already established, good evening all. With esteemed honor, I have answered the call to war, not with blind rage, but with sharpened reason, entrusted to dismantle my opponent's arguments with precision. Judges, what you just heard is hope disguised as proof, but in medicine, hope without evidence kills. That's why we have pharmacists and doctors to separate safe treatments from reckless gambles. Medicine isn't a playground for experiments. It's a battlefield of facts, science, and accountability. Firstly, the second speaker began by stating safer alternative to opioids already exist. It is a safer alternative to opioid. But honorable judges, should we legalize a drug simply because it offers relief, even if it brings serious risk of addiction, impaired judgment, and long-term mental health damage? Modern medicine already provides safe and proven pain relief that is already regulated. Why should we gamble with marijuana, a substance that remains under-researched and carries dangerous side effects, when trusted alternatives already exist? We don't need to open the door to marijuana with all its risk of abuse and addiction when we already have effective alternatives that don't carry the same social and health burdens. Thirdly, the first speaker said that other countries did it, even small ones. But Grenada is not a copy and paste nation. We don't follow, we think, we innovate and lead with purpose. Copying other countries blindly is irresponsible. Many of those countries have strong health infrastructures, more research facilities, and better regulatory systems than we do. What works in Canada or the US does not automatically work in Grenada. Those countries have resources, training programs, and monitoring systems. Grenada does not. To push legalization now is reckless. It is like forcing a child to run before learning to walk. In Grenada, our own pharmacists admit to being underprepared. In the study referenced by my first speaker, 71.1% slightly knowledgeable, 10.5% not knowledgeable at all. Until we build the expertise and systems to manage it, legalization would be reckless. Next, the second speaker said that it will create jobs in farming and increase revenue. Is this about money? Health and safety must come before profit. What is the point of economic gain if it comes at the cost of increased addiction, poor productivity, and higher healthcare burdens? A sick workforce is far more expensive than any tax revenue marijuana could bring in. So I ask you, what good is revenue if it comes at the cost of our nation's health and productivity? Honorable judges, the proposition arguments may sound attractive, but when tested against facts, they collapse. Natural does not mean safe. Foreign models cannot simply be copied. Medical benefits are already met by safer drugs. Regulation is not realistic in Grenada. And money cannot buy back our people's health. The risks are too great, the readiness is too low, and the support is too divided. The proposition case isn't medicine, it's marketing, and marketing does not save lives. Honorable judges, at the heart of medicine is one golden rule. First, do no harm. Legalizing marijuana in Grenada would break this rule. Our stance is clear. Marijuana is not the medicine Grenada needs. Medicine heals, marijuana harms. For these reasons, we must oppose this resolution, and we strongly urge you to reject this resolution also. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us give both the proposition and opposition a round of applause again. Those were some very strong arguments and rebuttals. And so to raise the heat a little bit more, even though it's already hot, I would invite the members from both the proposition and opposition to stand by my side, both my right and my left, as we go directly into the crossfire section. The microphone. And so in this segment, we will give both sides the opportunity to ask questions to the opponents. Next one. Mr. James. Okay, and so we'll lead off with the proposition. You can pose one question to the opposition side that you would want either clarity on.
Okay, so to the opposition, there is a 2022 study being cited heavily in your agreements, right? I want to know, is it peer-reviewed? Was it published in any journal? What was the sample size of the pharmacists in that study?
The research was facilitated by myself in 2022 while pursuing my associate degree in pharmacy. Yes, it was peer-reviewed because it was a team project. The pharmacists ranged from, I think, about 60 to 80 pharmacists took part in the study. Okay?
Does that answer your question? Or you want to do a follow-up question? No follow-up? Okay, so we go to the opposition side. Do you have a question?
The proposition team stated that Grenada can facilitate this research. Where would we facilitate it? We can barely facilitate the research of alcohol on the use of our people. How would you deal with that?
Question to the proposition? Can you repeat the question, please, in relation to facilitation?
They stated that they would facilitate the research for medical marijuana. I'm asking, we already have alcohol misuse that is not facilitated. Where or how would you facilitate the medical marijuana?
So question to the proposition.
We have brilliant minds here in Grenada, and to say that alcohol misuse is not studied, I would not make that conclusive statement. Are you certain about that?
We see the effect it has on our people.
As with any other chemical.
So are you willing to just take that danger and oppose it to medical marijuana?
Remember that, well, one of the rules we learned that everything is poison, everything can harm. It's the right dose, and we're speaking about medicinal marijuana that would be precise doses, right?
You can speak. Any follow-up questions on that same subject? If not, I have a question for the opposition. How do you respond to patients who claim medicinal marijuana relieves symptoms when conventional medicine fails? How do you respond to that?
Can you repeat the question?
How do you respond to patients who claims benefit from medicinal marijuana where conventional medicine fails? So in essence, you had made statements that there are other medicines that's available for use. And I'm saying there are patients who would have tried conventional medicines. You cited opioids, and it doesn't work for them, but they're claiming benefits from marijuana. How would you respond to that in your overall proposal or objection of the proposal?
Well, what might work for one may not work for all. And while it may work for one person, it may not be proven, a proven alternative for Grenada. And while one person might be using it, doesn't say that we should be implementing it in Grenada on a holistic level.
Interesting. Do you have a follow-up to that question or a statement you want to make on that question before I ask you your question?
I am going to ask, if not on a holistic level, then how? If not on a holistic level, then how?
Well, I'm still a student, and persons try things every day. And as we are learning in school, as my colleague said, the first rule of medicine is do no harm. So until proven methods are done and it's properly researched, I think it's unwise to implement it in Grenada. And clearly we don't have the resources to do that right now.
Okay, so question now to the proposition. What safeguards would you propose to prevent the misuse of medicinal marijuana? Because the opposition cited a very gray area and a huge potential for misuse. How do you propose that should Grenada take the position to legalize, well, both decriminalize and also legalize, because we're looking at legal use for medicinal purposes? How do you propose these safeguards, or what do you propose as safeguards?
Okay. Compared to, or if we were to use references compared to our Caribbean countries like St. Vincent, Jamaica, they've already put in regulations in terms of persons can have 3 cannabis trees at a certain height, as well as they would have certain quality checks that will be done.
I also wanted to mention that the opposition said that not all herbs or not all plants are safe. However, we are regulating and safely, properly doing so with a lot of opioids, where our opioids derive from a plant, opium. So if we are able to do that by proper dosing, scheduling, what is the difference with marijuana?
Let me just add also, we do not have to reinvent the wheel. And yes, Grenada is not copy and paste. Of course, the frameworks that the other countries have, we can adopt them and tailor them to suit. And we are speaking about medicinal marijuana. Now we are pharmacists. We would be the ones dispensing, right? Okay.
Okay, so you're responding?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So, based on a study done by my colleague, Latonia Cado, in 2022, and also mentioned in my rebuttal speech, 71.1% of Grenadian pharmacists stated that they are not ready. They're not, and so they have no knowledge at all about it. So why should we legalize it down here when we don't have any knowledge about it? We haven't done enough research about the topic.
Okay.
And as
Very interesting. Let's go ahead.
the proponents indicated earlier that we already have opioids and so available. None of these research were done in Grenada, if I'm correct. Most of these things are sourced from alternative countries, international countries. None of the research were done here in Grenada, which clearly shows us we are not ready to take on a magnitude of this nature. We are just not ready.
Okay. So I would allow for one more question each from the opposition and proposition. I think the opposition asked the question first, so I will go over to this side. The proposition, do you have another question for clarity from the opposition?
You mentioned that there are trusted alternatives to medical marijuana, right? We based our argument on it being used for a lot of patients who have tried traditional therapies and it is not working. So what is the alternative therapies you're mentioning?
So you heard the question?
Can you repeat?
Can you repeat the question,
Your
please?
rebuttal speaker mentioned that there are already safe alternatives to medical marijuana. I want to know what can do what marijuana does.
Exactly what is being utilized right now. We already have gabapentin, we have metoclopramide, ondansetron for chemotherapeutic nausea. These are things that are already safe and proven and regulated. How do we regulate marijuana now?
Do you want to respond to that?
Yes, they are proven, but we also know that all medications, as one of your teammates said, it works differently for everyone, and that ondansetron would not work for everyone. So what then for that
marijuana
patient?
would work?
Hold on, just finish your statement.
What then for that patient? And yes, to answer your question, there are research for the chemotherapy-induced nausea. There are approved treatments already, so it is guaranteed to work.
You want to respond?
Where your research is based in Grenada?
It is not based in Grenada. Are all the medications we dispense research based in Grenada?
No, but I'm saying that these are already regulated. Marijuana is not. To take up on ourselves, these medications have been researched by the bigger countries, the US and Canada. We did not. To take marijuana up now, without researchers from the bigger countries, would be a risk.
To add to my colleague, our pharmacist is already burdened as it is. We already have a lack of pharmacists in Grenada. Every day we come out from school, we can see that the pharmacies are filling. There's always a need for pharmacists. They're already burdened. During my year one, I completed attachments, and you see the overwhelming volume of patients that are coming in with medications that they have to balance, things like balancing a number of medications to treat one condition. Adding marijuana to that will just add to the burden of the pharmacists. They already have enough to do as it is. So I think that we should not legalize it at this time.
All right, so just to stay on course, that's in relation to, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a bit. We're looking at alternatives that are similar or can do what marijuana can do, so not necessarily pharmacists' burden, just for clarity there. So I just wanted us to stay on that.
To mention pharmacist burdens, are you saying that I as a pharmacist?
We're not going on pharmacist burden. That's why I just pulled that back in. So it's on the alternative and comparatives, not the burden. So if we don't have any follow-ups on that, I would allow the opposition to pose their final question. Or you had a direct response to that? Go ahead.
No, no question.
No, your question, right, so it's now your question. Go ahead.
Should I do it? Okay, so the second speaker stated that marijuana helps with chronic pain and nausea. But should we reschedule cocaine because it gives some sort of relief? Because marijuana also has serious side effects and we don't use the cocaine. So should we use the marijuana?
So the question is being asked, marijuana is used as pain relief, and so he's asking, since there's therapeutic benefit there, should we consider rescheduling cocaine because it may have therapeutic benefit as well?
Okay. It is not as addictive compared to cocaine, so we cannot compare these two drugs together. I have a question for the
Well,
opposition.
we're not taking more questions, so you can expound on the point, but we're not.
Okay. All right. So when compared to cocaine, it's not as addictive, right? We do not have we were talking about Grenada, right? In other countries, they have legalized it, and they have gotten more research. We haven't legalized as yet. How can we get more research? They're claiming that it's not, or it wouldn't be feasible for those patients. How can we even start, based on their claims, if it's not legalized? Compared to opioids, who have been there, they've been doing research, clinical studies. If it are not legalized, how can we get information? So straight off the bat, you rule it off as no, without legalization.
Anybody else on the team has to?
What the opponent, you are proving our point. This is the exact reason why we stated that we shouldn't legalize marijuana.
But
because
Let him finish his statement. Go ahead. Finish your statement.
yeah, we shouldn't do it because there is not enough research done on it. That is why.
my trusty and my worthy opponent, we haven't opened the door yet. So it's straight off the bat, you're shutting the door off. You have no research. So you just look at the plant and you say, no, we shouldn't have it. Why?
So we're not asking more questions there. It's just clarity. So unless that's a rhetorical question. Okay.
We also want to add that we're not speaking about cocaine. However, when it comes to the marijuana plant, we have research, or there has been research on specifically THC and CBD. And if there are means to explore other chemicals that can be derived from that plant, then it would definitely be beneficial. But the first step is to legalize it so that we will be able to get that information.
Any follow-ups?
Well, I would say why legalize it before doing the research is putting the cart before the horse. You can't legalize it and then do research.
All right. Okay, so we'll conclude the crossfire here. Thank you, opposition and proposition. Audience, are you entertained? Are you informed? Yes, let's give them a round of applause again. I think that was an excellent job. And so we have heard their constructive views. We have listened to the extension of their views. We have listened to their rebuttals. And we have listened to their cross-examinations. And so we would now go to their closing arguments, where they would further re-emphasize their positions. So the proposition would have started, so we would start the closing arguments with the opposition this time. So the speaker from the opposition side would now come to the microphone to bring her rebuttal, Ms. Latonia Kado.
Honorable judges, listen closely. This is not a polite suggestion. This is a warning. Ask yourself, would you hand the keys of a car to someone who has never driven? Would you rebuild a nation on sand? Well, this is exactly what the proposition is asking Grenadians to do. They want us to hand the keys of our nation's health to a policy we are unready for. They want us to build medicine on sand. If wealthy nations with vast resources still saw addiction soar, ERs overflow, road debts climb, and black markets thrive, what chance do we have? Their failures are not warning to ignore. There are disasters we would import. Throughout this debate, our team has exposed the hard truth. First, medical alternatives already exist, proven, regulated, and safe. Marijuana brings conflicting evidence, unpredictable effects, and no proper dosing. This is not medicine, that is gambling. Second, Grenada lacks the capacity to regulate safely. If advanced nations fail, our chances are worse. Third, the so-called economic benefits are a mirage. The cost of enforcement, addiction treatment, and social fallouts would devour any profits marijuana could bring into Grenada. We're not debating compassion, we're debating competence. Medicine demands precision. Legalization stipulates regulation, training, and enforcement, and we lack all three, honestly. So, do not be seduced by glittering promises. Promises do not stop impaired drivers. Promises do not treat addiction. Promises do not protect our children. To choose marijuana now is to choose uncertainty over certainty and gamble over guardianship. Honorable judges, the opposition stands for responsible, controlled progress, not reckless experiments. We will not gamble the lives for convenience. We will not trade stability for a risky promise. Reject this resolution, protect Grenada, and choose bedrock over sand. Thank you.
I'm having a wonderful time here this evening, are you? Yes, there's so much I didn't know that I now know. And today I was at TAMCC with the students and they had a section, what you know. And so at the end of it, they would say, if you didn't know, then now you know. So for those of you who didn't know, now you know. And so we invite the closing speaker from the proposition, Ms. Marissa Batiste, to bring her closing arguments.
Pleasant good afternoon again. Let us remember, marijuana under medical supervision is not a threat. It is a tool for healing. Now, we are pharmacists. A lot of medications come from plants. Now, it is grounded in scientific evidence. It is supported by international precedent, and it is needed here. Let us remember my colleague's argument. There is a 30% of addiction with nicotine as compared to marijuana, which only gives 9% chance of addiction. Let us remember that there are conventional medications failing and persons have this alternative to use. It is out of compassion. It is unconscionable to not afford Grenadians this route. So let us return to the pillar that cannabis relieves pain, it is proven. It reduces seizures, and it eases the suffering of cancer patients' nausea. I thank you.
Just for 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this has brought us to the end of the formal part of the debate. Let us give a round of applause again to both the proposition and opposition side for a job well done. And so we give this opportunity to the judges to tabulate. And while we do that, we would do two things. First, we would invite Mr. Anselm Clouden, barrister at law, to speak to us a bit on the legal implications and other legal-related matters relative to medical marijuana. He would speak to us for about 5 minutes, and then after we would open the floor to questions where you, the audience, can pose questions directly to either the opposition or the proposition, and they would be forced to answer. I would ensure that they answer your question directly without beating around the bush. So without any further ado, we invite Mr. Anselm Clouden to speak to us. Let's give him a round of applause.
Good night. I'll adopt the established protocol, but just a slight deviation. I'm undergoing some dental problems, and some of my front teeth is missing, so I hope the cameras don't pick it up as they did once upon a time. Having said that, I'm rather impressed by the debate that I've heard. I think both sides should be commended. However, we have in our midst our botanist, Dr. Marcel, who has done tremendous work on marijuana and other related herbal plants of medicinal value in Grenada, Caribou. Soursop, big thyme, a variety of medicinal plants that we have here with us, including the nutmeg, the cinnamon, lowering blood pressure, and diabetes treatments, ginger, we grow all this here. And marijuana is just another medicinal plant. I'm so happy that before coming here, I went to the beach. If I didn't have a smoke, I may not be as lucid as I am now. It stimulates the mind. And this is why CARICOM, in its recommendation to member states, encourage the decriminalization of marijuana in the first instance, so as to assist the criminal justice system to, as it were, avoid unnecessary custodial sentences for young people who, for the most part, enjoy the smoking, and not only smoking, but also herbal treatment by way of tea. The leaves are quite prolific. In that, I remember Dr. Sandra Gupta from CNN. He had 3 series on, call it Weed 1, Weed 2, Weed 3. And he's a neurosurgeon of international eminence. And Dr. Sandra Gupta said that you cannot overdose on marijuana. Now, the evidence shows, in some instances, where the young minds, like persons between the ages of 10 to about 17, ought not to indulge in it because of the youthful nature of the brain, it has an adverse effect on the mental development of that individual. That's scientifically proven. So that most countries have put the age that you can consume marijuana at 18. That's the international age. Now, our committee, that's the working committee on recommendations to the government as to decriminalization and ultimately legalization of the substance. We had suggested the age of 21. But let me say this. Most countries who have gone through elaborate and extensive scientific exploration as to the potency of the plant, they have all published scientific reports that from 18 onward, it is safe. Those reports came out of Germany. The reports came out of Canada, and Canada in particular. They have done extensive work on the deleterious effects of cannabis on young people. And since it is very difficult to police who smoke at what age, they have put institutions in place to address any sort of, not necessarily addictive, but harmful effects that persons 18 and under may experience as a consequence of smoking cannabis. And they've put certain institutions in place by way of counseling, by way of treatment, and the like. So that we are young in the business now. And I hope and pray that we get involved in it at an economic level, because a pharmaceutical level too, but I'm speaking holistically or generally, not necessarily tailored to the pharmacist who would be ultimately responsible for distributing marijuana prescriptively. So a doctor, as is the case in St. Vincent, you go to the doctor, he assesses your complaint, and if he thinks that marijuana could be curative or assist you, then legitimately he can prescribe it. And you take your prescription to the pharmacist, and they would no doubt determine the quantity and the like. Economic benefits. Let us deal with medicinal marijuana, as it is. Yeah. One? Yeah. Yeah. It's a multi-million-dollar business, $1 billion, man. Employment, it is multifaceted. We sit here and we deliberate and we say this and that, especially those who are otherwise religiously inclined. Papa God put herbs here for your healing, and we see it in a variety of plants, so don't discriminate about it. This is an industry that could create employment. It's environmentally sound, not as oil that would pollute the ocean. You have to get oil spill contingency plans in place. And of course, you know the effects of fossil fuels. China recently decided they're going to go into windmills and wind-generated energy. We here have the sun, so we could go into solar and the like. The point I'm making is marijuana is so conducive to the climatic conditions of our region, and those of us who have gone to St. Vincent last year can testify to the fact that this is a multi-million-dollar industry. Ralph, my colleague, Gonzalez in St. Vincent, he laughs at us. He said, boy, you're sending all your money in St. Vincent. Millions of dollars from Grenada going to St. Vincent to buy the weed to come home, because 2/3 of Grenada is smoking. If you don't believe it, just go through the country. Everywhere you go, you see the young fellows. If they don't have the grinder, you see them with their hand and the weed. $5 a shot. Okay? So it's not legal yet, recreationally. And guys are hustling and making some dollars. They buy, they send their children to school, the fridge, the stove, and everything in the house. Go to St. Vincent and see how our own brothers and sisters live. And the Rastafarians who have had and endured the stigma of marijuana, now their philosophy has been redeemed, because they can use it for sacramental purposes. So you have sacramental dispensaries administering and catering to the public. Look, I could go on and on and on. Let me say to the folks here now, we are last on the ladder, and we have a hell of a climb. St. Kitts is making billions already. Well, what did I say, billions? Millions of dollars. St. Vincent is doing exceedingly well. Barbados is in the business now, and we are sitting back here conjuring up all kinds of Buck Rogers perception of marijuana. Folks, the sooner you get your hand in it, the better, the healthier you would be, especially if you use it, as Dr. Marcel would tell you, as a tea, like green tea or soursop tea. Cannabis is equally as curative as any of the other herbs that Papa God has put here for our healing. May it so please you.
I believe you are well capable, so I believe next time we would invite you to be one of the debaters. Yeah? I would like to hastily invite Dr. Marcel Guido to share a few words with us. Not as long as our dear learned friend.
I think that's the difference between scientists and lawyers. We would try to be exact, evidence-based as much as possible. I must congratulate the two teams, yes, for their fantastic approach to the subject. It is a subject that needs debating. It's a subject that needs enlightenment. It's a subject that needs a lot of research. Not only physical research, but also, getting information from other countries and other places. Marijuana has been with us for over 12,000 years. Okay. And we are now at the point where we are beginning to understand some of its properties better. As a matter of fact, it peeves me a little bit. 40-something years ago, when I was doing my PhD, I had responsibility in my lab for 50 pounds of marijuana and a bottle of cocaine. In Grenada, if I have one piece of marijuana, I could be arrested 40 years later. Does that, in my mind, that doesn't really make sense, that I could just be picked up because of, if I'm interested in doing research, I cannot, So what does that do for the country? But I don't necessarily want to speak out of me. I'll give you a little bit of information. I am now involved in the project with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has taken the position that when people write about the Caribbean, our tiny little islands here, the first thing they propose is the crime and the statistics for maluse and things like that. Whereas, when they're reporting from the developed countries and other countries, they speak about the enormous economic benefits. We hear a place like the States could make $30 billion a year. Canada close to 50 billion. The US billions. That's the money they are making a year from cannabis products. And in the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is saying, let us consider this as an economic entity. Let us look at it in its totality. Let us look at it where it also involves the cultural aspect of the Rastafarians and traditional farmers who are in it. But if you do not have the laws, yes, then technically they cannot touch it, or we cannot touch it. Technically too, you cannot even earn income from it because the bank, credit union wouldn't touch your money because it's illegal. Okay, so those are some of the things I think we have to look at. We have to inform. We have to spread the information. We have to get the details. And I think it has to be controlled. We have to say where we are currently. And also we have to understand the multiplicity of uses of the plant itself. And marijuana technically involves 3 species. Cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and cannabis ruderalis. Ruderalis wouldn't grow around these parts because ruderalis really grows in places like Russia and China and things like that. And technically, ruderalis has no delta THC in it. So it's a plant that provides relaxation and control of anxiety and things when used. Yeah. Cannabis sativa is the one that carries the highest proportion of delta THC and also other cannabinoids, of which there are 100 cannabinoids. What is interesting, though, from the research is our bodies have built-in receptors for cannabinoids. Our brain has receptors for cannabinoids. Our reproductive parts have receptors for CB1. And then our spleen, etc., has receptors for CB2. So it is very interesting that our bodies are engineered for receiving cannabinoids. So what do we do about that? We need to do additional research. We need to look at the laws in a way where it could increase the knowledge of the people. We have to make the appropriate laws and the appropriate regulations. In other words, we must progress and we must understand too the full economic benefit that could be got from the plant. I'll just end with one story. On the market already, you could go to any supermarket and buy hemp milk. Hemp milk is made from the seeds of banana. The seeds of marijuana. You just remove the covering of the seeds, you grind, add water, and help make it available. Yeah. You could use the leaves and stem to make teas. As a matter of fact, I did a presentation yesterday, I wouldn't go into that, on food and beverages from marijuana for the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And there was a contribution from a young lady who said her daughter was suffering from and she didn't define the disease, a very intense disease. She started a whole range of medication, and she was not improving. But the mother did an intervention where she started growing marijuana and was using the small plants to make a tea for her daughter, and it is providing great relief. There's plenty of work to be done, lots of information to be sought, put our brightest minds again to challenge the problem, legal, economically, and scientifically, medically, and we might have to teach more about it in the School of Pharmacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guido, for your contribution. And the judges are almost finished, but as promised, I would like to open the floor. So my colleague has the mic on the floor. If you have a question, you can just raise your hand and you can direct the question to either the proposition or opposition, and they would answer accordingly. So any questions from the floor? Okay. I'll wait on that side.
Hi, guys. I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of your representation this evening in terms of the two groups. I'm asking the proposition. And the question I have here is there an established dosage for these preparations when they're taken from the herbs of themselves? And how do one establish the correct dosage?
So the question to the proposition, is there an established dose for the chronic ailments that you're proposing to use marijuana for? And how do you determine those dosages?
If you take the herb by itself, there's no guarantee to what strength you would be getting, if that's the answer. Well, not that's the answer, that's the question you posed about the whole herb, right? If it comes to those that's already approved with the different strengths, it's through testing, through the formulation of the medication. You would know what component is THC, what component is CBD, and so forth. It would be labeled as such as well.
Okay.
It's a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So will Grenada be using the standardized version in capsules, or will they be using the herb?
So the question is being asked. Well, it should be more like a proposal opposed to a question. What are you proposing, that Grenada use the herbs or the standardized preparation? Just to rephrase the question. So I'll rephrase the question. Is it your proposal that Grenada uses the raw herbs or the standardized capsule or liquid?
Our debate here, and we are pharmacists, so I would say standardized. Yes?
Is there another question or?
Many more, but I give
Okay, so we have a contribution to that. Dr. Guido at the front. We'll bring the mic to you because we have online viewers and we'd like for them to hear you. Remember, we're keeping the answers very short because we want to take as much questions as possible.
Well, very quick, one of the things, depending on what you do, would depend on the legislation. The legislation and the regulations would guide how you handle marijuana or cannabis in Grenada. But as regards dosage, you would do, if you're going to make a medication, it goes right back to the strain. You have to analyze the strain to get the exact component, the quantity. Then you extract, there are defined extraction procedures, yes. And then you standardize and you build up and you dilute according to as necessary.
Awesome.
And then what is very important is you must put the quantity on your label. It must be in your label, the quantity of cannabinoids that are available.
Okay, you have other questions on the floor? Don't be shy. No? If not, we will wrap up this segment. Or a contribution. Okay, we have Mr. Claudine at the front. Just 1 second. Let's get the mic just for the online viewers as well.
I just want to make a slight contribution to, as it were, dispel any fears that if we decriminalize or legalize, we may run afoul of international conventions. Now, that is not so at all. And this is why Canada, Germany, Australia, England, the world over, they have been able to decriminalize and legalize with impunity. And the reason being, the 1961 United Nations Convention on Narcotics, where it was initially, cannabis was prohibited. You could prohibit it. There is no exception. But then come, that's in 61, then come the 1972 protocol that amended the 1961 convention, the UN 1972 protocol. And what that said, and this was the opening that countries needed, including the United States of America, Canada, the world over. The convention amended 1972 protocol, amended the 61 convention, and Article 28 of that convention said, for the first time, you can cultivate cannabis. And what was more instrumental is the fact that they referred you to Article 23, which they said was really designed for opium and opium poppy. Mm-hmm. But because it was permissive, what they did, they said, if you're going to cultivate cannabis, you must follow identical for cannabis, what is contained in Article 23 with respect to a management regime. Mm-hmm. And this is what all the countries have done, including St. Vincent.
You know, surprisingly, the presentation I wanted you to do up here, that's what you're doing down there.
Well, I just wanted to, as it were, dispel certain fears and contradictions. Yeah. So that countries, Canada, you name it, I mean, the world, 2/3 of the world now have decriminalized and legalized the use of cannabis for medicinal and pharmaceutical purposes. And it was the 1972 protocol to the 61 prohibitive convention that opened the door to the use, the international use of cannabis with impunity.
Mm. We have a question right next to you, Mr. James. Is it to the proposition or opposition?
No, well, it's not a...
just a contribution.
Okay, just a contribution.
Thank you.
I've listened to what Dr. Marcel said, and I'm, by the way, very happy to see Dr. Marcel. He reminds me of two periods in my life. One, as a chemistry teacher, and two, as a teacher of pharmacognosy when I did pharmacy. So Dr. Marcel has been around and studying this thing for a long time. But piggybacking on what he said, if the law determines the nature of the medicine, whether it's capsules or whatever else, whatever form it is, and we do not yet have a copy of the draft, then our argument here, and continuing to argue without all of these things in place, really sort of defeat what we're trying to establish. Because if the law will determine it and we don't have it, then we are at a loss or at a disadvantage. And so I'm saying that perhaps an argument to stick one for the opposition, perhaps we're not ready. And that's my comment.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. James, for your contribution. Minister Andrew, I must say you have quite a lot of work to do because the arguments on both sides are very strong, and I'm not sure what position your administration has taken, but to sway the minds of the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique, you may need to employ the expertise of both the opposition and the proposition to build your case, because they came very, very strong. So just food for thought. So we're going to wrap this section up. If anyone has any burning, okay, so there's question in the back. So that would be the last one. And then we would invite the head judge to make some comments, and then they would announce the winners of the debate and the varying categories.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mrs. Duncan.
I missed the whole thing because I really wanted to be here, but I had to work tonight. However...
And thank you for coming just to ask the question.
Thank you. I do have a question, though. Seeing that the
Is it the proposition or the opposition?
No.
Or in general?
Well, in general.
Okay.
Seeing that this marijuana, the whole factor of decriminalizing, legalizing, and what products could come out of the marijuana, and all that is down our alley as pharmacists and the pharmaceutical sector. In all this planning and all these deliberations and whatever, I would like to know, who is the voice of the pharmaceutical industry that is being represented in all of these talks and meetings and deliberations and so on? Where is the voice of the pharmacy? Is there anyone here of authority that can, maybe the Minister of Health or whichever other minister is there representing, could speak to how are we incorporating the experts who are on drugs, who are the pharmacists in this whole process? That's my main burning question tonight.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that is the role of the Grenada Association of Pharmacists. Remember, we are advocates for the practice of pharmacy. And so where ministers and other persons who have direct responsibility for law, stakeholder engagement is very important. And obviously the body who would represent pharmacy in Grenada would be the Pharmacy Association. So this is part and parcel of what we are doing, what we are doing here today. And we have ministers of government, we have legal luminaries and other persons within the field that would do that. So in relation to the voice, but we do have one person who wants to speak to that. Okay, so we have Nandi Noel, the CEO of the Grenada Cannabis Commission, who would speak to that, and we'll take your follow-up question after. So, yeah. So Ms. Duncan, I'll take you right after your follow-up.
Thank you so much. So good evening, and thank you so much for your question. So just for a bit of clarity, I'd like to start off by saying that cannabis is really not taboo. The issue is not many people are well versed in it to actually understand the benefits of it, and also we need to speak of the potential harms with regards to abuse and so forth. But to directly answer your question, from a policy perspective at the Cannabis Commission, we're working on decriminalization in a two-phase state. The first phase is decriminalization via current amendments to bills. And we're going to look at in this first phase things like religious use, private carry, household planting. The second phase is when we're really going to dive into the development of our cannabis industry. In that phase, that's when we're going to be in discourse with fraternities such as the Pharmaceutical Association, as well as others in the, the medical practitioners. Yeah. But we're also going to be engaging with other entities from economic standpoint, from the socio standpoint, and so forth. So we're not there yet. At this stage, we're still in phase one, where we're looking for decriminalization. Phase two, which as a matter of fact has already begun with us engaging with consultants to help build our policy framework for the building of our cannabis industry. And just note that there are different models that we can engage in for a cannabis industry. Mr. Clouden would have touched on this earlier when he mentioned CARICOM's 2018 report called Waiting to Exhale. It's something that you should take a look at. I encourage everyone that I meet and speak to take a look at it, because in that report, it says that we can have models such as recreational. Now, from our policy standpoint, we're not encouraging recreational use, just so that we won't be susceptible to any sort of international
legal issues.
Exactly. It also speaks to hemp and agro-processing, and then there's the medicinal and the therapeutic benefits, and that is what we're really piggybacking on. So once we get to that stage where we need to really get into deep discussion with the pharmaceutical industry and pharmacists at large, then you'll be able to hear from us.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, you have a follow-up.
Okay, she kind of touched on my follow-up a little bit, because my follow-up would have been, or is, the Dragon, you said that the association is who really should be there and representing in those talks. I was about to ask, have we been, as an association, been invited to these talks? And she kind of alluded to that, but she said we would have been involved in the second phase. And I noticed she also said that the second phase has started. So my question is now, have we been invited to these second phase talks that has already begun?
Okay, I didn't hear her say that the second phase have been started. I know she said that the first phase, which is the decriminalization, and after that would have been passed, then we're going to look at the second phase, which has different models that can be adapted. But in relation, direct answer to your question, the Pharmacy Association has been engaged already. Last year, there was the Cannabis Expo in St. Vincent that a delegation from Grenada and a few members of the Grenada Association would have attended. A report was sent to the cannabis commissions, and I know they have groundwork doing, and probably, I'm not sure when they're going to start the second phase, but they would contact us again, and we would have wider discourse. So it's a work in progress from my understanding, and they haven't reached to the part of the direct consultations with members of the association.
I think maybe you missed it, but she did say
okay, so
that the second phase
no
has
problem. Do you have
begun.
another question, or that's it? We're going to wrap it up for now? Okay. So I'm going to invite the head judge to deliver a few remarks, and then they would announce also the winners of the debate and the varying categories. So, Dr. George.
Good evening, everyone. I didn't realize I was going to be the head judge. But first of all, I would just like to congratulate all of our participants for today. I know all of us in the audience would have been able to see that there was a lot of preparation that went into what they did, also a lot of teamwork as well. I did make a lot of notes, full page of notes. But I'll try to just give some brief remarks on, the direction that we were thinking and how we arrived at where we did. Just for information's sake, all of us scored individually, and then we took the average of all of our scores to arrive at where we did, right? So in terms of the first speakers for both the proposition and the opposition, I think that you both did well in setting the stage for what your team was going to talk about, because throughout the rest of the debate, we did hear your team members reference things that you would have mentioned in the beginning as would have been your key pillars, etc. So I felt like that was very good in my opinion. I appreciated as well, especially on the proposition side, the amount of citations they had for articles and journals, etc., that I think, fortunately for them, that was one of the key things that tipped some of our scoring in their favor. I I did feel like the second speakers did well on building and giving emphasis to the points that the first speakers would have put forward. Although I felt that for both second speakers, I feel like you felt you had so much to say that you are a bit rushed. My advice for next time, if you decide to participate in something similar, is it helps us as well if you're not rushing to reach the points, because then we have time to actually absorb what you're saying, and it helps with your clarity as well. In terms of the rebuttal speakers, I feel like both speakers did a good job of mentioning specific points that the opposing team would have brought forward in their arguments and trying to directly rebut. I always appreciate when, you're able to pinpoint exactly what they would have said. It shows that you were listening in order to make your rebuttal. And in terms of the crossfire round, I appreciated that all members of the team participated for both sides. I actually had a few times when I wished, because there were points that were made previously for some of the teams, I wish they had grabbed onto it immediately when the other team mentioned it. I wish I could give the specific example now, but there were some times when, for example, the proposition would have mentioned something that the opposition actually said in their argument, but I felt like the opposition let the comment drop instead of emphasizing that they would have already addressed that. In terms of the rebuttals as well, I'm not the rebuttal, sorry, the summaries and the closing, I felt that both persons were able to summarize what their teams had said, also summarize what they addressed in the rebuttals. For the proposition, I felt a little bit like you left me hanging in the end. I wish you had kind of rounded it out a little bit better, but I think that both would have done as well. So that's it for the commentary. Okay. You want me to say the points or just say the Okay, so in terms, we had an individual scoring table and also a team scoring table. I won't go through all of the individual aspects. I'll just let you know what they were and what the overall score was as the average for all of us as the judges. So we had scores for argument strength, evidence and research, rebuttal, clarity and delivery, team coordination, and respect and decorum. For the first speaker, the proposition, that's Ms. Jada Crawford. She would have scored an average of 85.6 points. For the first speaker of the opposition, Mrs. Keisha Dragon, she would have scored an average of 74.6 points. The second speaker of the proposition, Mr. Amir Bagwan, average of 86.3 points. The second speaker for the opposition, Ms. Latonya Kadu, 74 average points. The third speaker of the proposition, Ms. Marisa Batiste, 85.3 average. And the third speaker of the opposition, Mr. DeAndre Alexander Frame, 72 overall average points. For the crossfire for both teams, we also had the same grading points. And for the average, for the proposition, for the crossfire, 87.6 points. For the opposition crossfire, 76 points. The closing of the proposition, 80 average points. And the closing of the opposition, 78 average points. And at the end, we also had to, of course, put everybody in specific categories for the debate winners. So we would have had the overall winning team being the proposition. And they would have gotten, out of the two, 167.6 out of 200 points. Where the opposition would have scored 154 out of the overall 200 points. The best speaker with the total of 86.3 points is Mr. Amir Bagwan. The best rebuttal, that would have been Ms. Marisa Batiste. The best opening statement, Ms. Jada Crawford. And the best closing argument was given by the proposition team, Marisa Batiste. Oh, yes, take it so.
Yes. So we're there. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Dr. George. Let us give a round of applause again to the judges. They did an excellent job. And I would also like us to give a round of applause to the timekeeper. I literally asked her today, as soon as she arrived, to be the timekeeper for us, and she graciously accepted. So thank you very much, Madam Joseph. And so let us give a round of applause to the proposition for a job well done. And as a speaker, I have to remain unbiased, so I'll continue to do so. And we'll now go straight into the awards. And so we ask the members of the proposition team to stand. And we would like to invite Acting Prime Minister and Minister of Agriculture and many other portfolios to grace us with his presence to give these awards. Ms. Jada Crawford. So Ms. Jada Crawford will get a certificate of participation and also a gift hamper complements Huggins Pharmaceutical Distribution. Mr. Amir Bagwan. Likewise, he will get a certificate of participation and a gift hamper complements Huggins Pharmaceutical Division. And Ms. Marisa Baptiste. And because there are no losers in the Grenada Association of Pharmacists, we'd like to ask the proposition team to please stand. The opposition, my apologies. You can sit. Invite opening speaker for the proposition, Mrs. Keisha Dragon. Stay. Mr. DeAndre Alexander Frame. And Ms. Latonia Kado. Thank you, Minister. So we have some debate winner categories: Best Speaker, Best Rebuttal, Best Opening Statement, and Best Closing Argument. And I would like to invite someone who has been a huge supporter of the Grenada Pharmacy Association. Whenever we call on that person, she's there. She's in the shadows, but we're going to bring her out into the light. I'd like to invite Mrs. Amanda Baptiste to do the presentations of the categories. Owner, manager, what else? Managing director, mother, wife, and a whole bunch of others. Thank you for the support that you have given us throughout the years, and I think this is part of your time to shine as well. Okay. So, the best speaker, as adjudicated by our esteemed judges, from the proposition, Mr. Amir Bagwan. Mr. Amir Bagwan would receive a gift hamper, compliments Bryden's Pharmacy Division. Best opening statement would have resonated with the judge as a contribution that really opened the debate and opened the mind of the judges as to what would come next. And so that person is no other than Jada Crawford. Congratulations, Jada. Jada likewise will receive a gift basket, compliments Bryden's Pharmacy Division. I can tell you for a fact that she likes to argue, because she argues with everybody. She argues on the chat. She argues with me. So it's no surprise that this person would have received the best rebuttal, Miss Marissa Baptiste. And likewise, Ms. Baptiste would receive a gift hamper from Bryden's Pharmacy Division. And we would give Ms. Baptiste just 1 second to rest, and she would stand again, since she would have already, as well, would have won the best closing argument. So please return Ms. Marissa Baptiste, best closing argument. Thank you, Ms. Baptiste, Mrs. Baptiste. And so this has brought us to the end of a wonderful time here this evening. I enjoyed being here with you as your host and speaker. I would like to thank all our esteemed judges, our timekeeper, our specially invited guests who took the time off, I'm sure your busy schedule, to be here with us this evening. Minister, your presence here as well is graciously accepted, and we recognize you for what you have done here this evening. We'd like to thank all our audience, or the members of the audience, and our online viewers. Without you, while the debaters are here and the judges are here, the event would not have had the same feel or atmosphere that it had without you. So we thank you for being here as well. So we close off what we hope to be the first of many debates of this level. And as you leave, remember these 4 words as we celebrate World Pharmacist Day: think health, think pharmacist. Have a blessed evening, everyone.